Oh, look, another Fnaf lore video, wow. Hi everybody, I'm here at... Well, you ever see any of the Saw movies?
Hello, Choopo. I want to play a game with you.
Yeah, stop, give me a second. I'm being punished for my misdeeds as a person. From loitering to scaring babies on public buses, I gotta say it feels pretty special to be wanted. So go on, feel free to torment me with all those little death contraptions you got. It doesn't matter though, because explaining Fnaf lore is objectively more painful than all these contraptions combined. Can I just do that instead of the reverse bear trap and eating silverware before being put in an MRI?
What?
Okay, cool, let's start. Five Nights at Freddy's, baby's first horror game, perfectly in this limbo zone where the youngins love it because it seems cool and mature, whereas grown adults that don't get paid for it see it more as an ironic love or just a cool premise based on a type of infamous restaurant, including me. It took advantage of those freaky, uncanny robot mascots prevalent in the later half of the 20th century and worked with it to create something really different. Regardless, I gotta appreciate it for being here. I'm squeamish around horror-related things, even though I really do enjoy them. The premise here is fun, and there's a lot to work with. Now, obviously, there's a lot I can talk about. The innovative gameplay, the small chunk of the fan base that makes creative and genuine projects of quality, the strange direction the series has gone in, the merch that unleashes a primal rage for me if I look at it for too long, the truly inspired designs that I can't articulate but exist in this elegantly dated and iconic feel, a fan base that I want to take the lunch money from, but you know, it's frowned upon for an adult to fight children and band children, especially the ones that are band kids. Here's the Venn diagram between band kids and FNAF fans. FNAF's story has been credited as one of the greater factors leading to fans continuing to follow the series. There's a level of passion, commitment, and infighting you can't help but appreciate as much as I can ridicule. And that's why I'm here today. I'm upset with almost everything that has slithered out of this franchise since the original game. To some extent, I'm the equivalent of a Freddy Fazbear Gen 1er. Today, I will attempt to figure out all of FNAF's story. Before a proper dive in, we gotta talk about how I'm handling this. The biggest challenge of today was a simple one. It's a FNAF video. No matter what or how you do it, it's gonna get wrong or outdated, or the community will get provoked pretty quickly. I'm thinking I have 3 months tops, if I'm lucky. That's why Game Theory has 200 theories on this. So for the sake of my own well-being, I intended from the very start to make this not only as accurate as possible, but also as inaccurate as possible. There's not an objective timeline, nor will there be one, because then there will be no more money. The entire franchise has so much of its identity and traction reliant on speculation and story discussion. The very ecosystem has creators make content on it, the fans consume it, and try seeking more. This leads to cheap garbage merch being sold at mass and GameStops across the globe, and eventually young fans become creators and repeat the cycle. And this has been going on for over 11 years. Five Nights at Freddy's is here to stay as our modern horror IP. I have no issue with that. I'm actually a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, introducing more and more people into good horror, clean horror, like Halloween, and maybe even a little bit of Alien. But absolutely those more niche works. I love a good indie horror. That's fine. What is not is FNAF being here to stay. I'm not a fan of FNAF. I actually despise the FNAF side, to be entirely honest. There is a fine line between a FNAF fan and a Five Nights at Freddy's fan. It's like knowing what snakes are dangerous or not. It's like the difference between a delicate wine tasting and alcoholism, to indulge on occasion versus to absorb yourself in your own filth and consequences. One might casually have fun, might have story comprehension, might even watch a popular channel play through one of the games. That's fine, and probably where the majority lie. I quite enjoy 3FS myself. A FNAF fan has merch though. They are too committed to the world. They gotta buy the little toys of their favorite dead robot children and killers. Chances are they own a firework Freddy Fazbear action figure. That alone is a giveaway. Though most of all, they don't go outside, and in the rare situation Twitter or YouTube are down and they actually have to see the outside world, they can be identified via their strong scent of cheap, sweaty plastic and the visual aid of a t-shirt that is a size too small. Make sure to run when you see a FNAF fan. You need to run in opposite directions. You need to remember that they attacked when provoked, and they prefer to strike in numbers. Plus, again, MapHat has doomed me. Not only did he come up with the idea of game theory before I could on account of the fact that I was a child, but he's also gatekeeping the deep dark FNAF secrets while drinking security breach lemon lime drinks high up in the hills in Scott Cawthon's big, enormous, giant Freddy Fazbear funded mansion. These two are latched onto a story they scrambled together. A story that has your weird coworkers that like the taste of disinfectant wipes. Like they have to solve it. They have to. And then in the super secret FNAF content creator club, all of them just hold on to the forbidden knowledge, with the 4 backup plot twists on standby when someone barely manages to figure figure out a fraction of their secret lore. I know from experience, storytelling can be pretty hard, Matty Patty. I'm looking at everything fairly. I'm going to be noting important enough details from all of these events. I'll look into the games, the books, the movies, but in exchange, I also considered how important all these events and installments truly are. My favorite character of the series, Mr. Hippo, says it best in Ultimate Custom Night. You try to read into every little thing and find a meaning in everything anyone says, you'll just drive yourself crazy. And to me, when you lose yourself to the said crazy, you are no better than a Fnaf fan. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Your theater kid cousin might not be lost to the funny bear game after all. As an outsider to this knowledge, the community, this empire, I simply must figure it all out. I hope you're ready because I'm about to blow your minds. I'll be putting my own little ideas or theories up when they're needed. I chose to be very blunt when filling in the gaps, and here we go. Mr. Jigsaw Man, can you give me a laptop so I can just read off the FanWiki articles?
Oh, yeah, here you go. Bippity boppity.
Thank you. According to Google AI and ChatGPT and Opera GX, Fnaf takes place on Earth, a planet consisting of over 4 continents. It takes place in the United States, in one of those made-up states like Utah or Jefferson or Minnesota, but we can't really guarantee that because that might get proven wrong in 5 laps at Freddy's. Utah is one of the ones that show up the most often. Let's just roll with that. The catalyst of the story of Fnaf follows 3 merry men, a trio of intelligent fellows who all have their own ambitions and dreams that co-align as much as they don't. There's William Afton, Henry Emily, and Edwin Murray, who invented recycling and has only been established as an existing character for a couple of years at most. In the 1960s and primarily 1970s, the trio were responsible for 3 major companies that left them all intertwined. William and Henry were friends and wanted to set up a family restaurant under Fazbear Entertainment. William had his own adjacent thing going on called Afton Robotics LLC, and Edwin inherited his deceased father's workshop where they could take commissions to build costumes, suits, and eventually moving toward mechanical parts more commonly. This place is known as Murray's Costume Manor. All 3 have their own family. William has at least 3 children, oldest to youngest, Michael, Elizabeth, and the third one doesn't really have a name, so the consensus for the name is like Evan or Cece for crying child. I'm gonna go with Cece. Henry has 1 known daughter, her name's Charlie, and Edwin marries Fiona, a nice woman who works at MCM. We like her, she's cool, and then eventually, in the early to mid 1970s, they have a son named David. William Afton and Henry Emily are veteran commissioners of Edwin's company of MCM. They made Fredbear's Family Diner, the primary gimmick being these spring-lock suits, basically mascot costumes that work as animatronics but are incredibly dangerous to wear. Any sort of unexpected movements or overexposure to moisture is enough to brutally end the life of anyone wearing one. But otherwise, everything is just peachy. So long as nothing bad happens to any of these guys with rapidly growing power somewhere in the United States, nothing bad will, oh no. During this time, Edwin's mental health starts getting a little flimsy. Just too many projects, too many employees panicking. It's not a good situation. And so there's a lot of concern from Fiona about his constant absences. And then it gets worse, because one fall while getting ready for this Fall Fest event, she dies! No idea how you die in corn mazes or prepping apple cider, but it's for sure gotta be like some Final Destination-esque scenario that resulted in her perishing. Technically also it could be foul play, but we don't know that. So that's definitely gonna irk him. To counteract this, he has difficulty putting the pieces together, but eventually creates a robot known for the time as the Mimic in order to replicate Fiona's personality and fulfill her responsibilities. And that lasts for a good while. Little David sees the Mimic start to fully replace that hole in the world that his mom left behind. He's then fatally hit by a car. Edwin is devastated. Entire company starts going to shit. He's not doing all too well, but thanks to the encouragement of the mimicked robot Fiona wife, this is weird already, Edwin decides to make a new mimic, Mimic 2, aka the real, actual, dangerous bad mimic. And this is about to get stupid important. Get ready. Around this time of Edwin's breakdown, William and Henry are thriving. They're making good bank on Fredbear's Family Diner, running circles around another franchise Edwin and MCM owned called Chica's Party World, which has this one animatronic that's a cupcake, so you already know it's getting dire for MCM. And now they want to go further, expanding to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, this being a new restaurant with the hopes of making a new and improved animatronics, including redesigns of their hit animatronics at Fredbear's, those being Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, along with the addition of Chica from Party World, and then the introduction of a fox pirate, because that's raw as hell. Like, imagine this animal as a robot and a pirate. That's a good idea. And like, Edwin already designed something like that, so yeah, they can have Foxy. So they hit up Edwin's shop, everything's falling apart over there, employees are leaving, for everyone's safety, the place is coming to an end. And this is the point where William and Henry start causing problems for the hell of it. Hey Edwin, here's 4 major animatronic projects we want you to get started on. We know you found a way to make a safer and more cost-effective Springlock suit, but we don't want that. And we know that you're already over budget for this project. Too bad. And then William pulls Henry to the side and goes like, dude, this guy's lost his wife, his kindergarten son. He's pretty vulnerable right now. The main thing we should be doing is giving him more work. We should be like sabotaging this company so we can buy all their cool shit. At around 1975, through the bribery of employees, limiting new clients, and downsizing the company, Fazbear Entertainment is able to absorb a lot of MCM's assets, technology, and information. And this is how Fazbear Entertainment was able to acquire the rights to a whole bunch of silly little mascot characters that'll keep showing up across the company history. Anything Edwin's company produces is now under Fazbear Entertainment unless specified otherwise. So you know what that means, horrifying little creature on the TV forcing me to do this?
No.
It means that Freddyland owns like 1 million little robot characters now, and anytime new ones are introduced to the Fazbear franchise, we can assume they were created around this point.
Wow! Even Roxanne Wolf?
Especially Roxanne Wolf. Don't be weird about it. I've seen your channel. Anyway, worst of all for the emotionally distraught Edwin losing everything good in his life, Mimic 2 starts copying David's little childlike whimsy and personality as it has nothing else to go off of. Completely sets Edwin off the edge. I thought he was already off it. I mean, like, this is the longest edge on the planet. He gets really negative. Bad vibes infect the Mimic and learns nothing else but hate and sorrow, and decides the optimal way to attain those feelings is through death and destruction, all while not having a full comprehension of what it wants to be, and then transforms into a whole bunch of personalities based on the costumes it's wearing. And the initial Mimic is transformed into this robot named F10N4, spelled like that, the Fiona, and now it's left abandoned in the MCM. This is, to say the least, a major problem that William and Henry will never have to deal with. The final power move made has to be William deciding to hire Edwin back after claiming his old company and stuff and all the surrounding land. He makes a kind offer, or maybe just does it out of convenience, to let Edwin keep his giant, big, enormous mansion right next to the factory, but he also doesn't get to own it. It's property of Fazbear Entertainment. But at this point, he's so utterly defeated that he practically removes himself from any portion of the Fnaf story forever, possibly, maybe. And this takes us to the first major game of our timeline, 1975, The Secret of the Mimic. Spoiler alert, but The Secret of the Mimic is everything involving Edwin we just talked about. This is Arnold. Ignore the fact he's just a pair of arms. We have no idea what he looks like, and that's just something that happens in these games. Like, almost every character involved doesn't have an official design. I'm assuming William Afton looks like Matthew Lillard because I refuse to assume the book designs are canon. Arnold's introduction is the start of us seeing how corrupt Fazbear Entertainment is. This is a reoccurring trend across these games, and the majority of known employees are either causing problems for everybody else or being stretched unbelievably thin. After a 36-hour shift, Arnold is the closest employee to MCM and gets tasked with retrieving some info after Edwin goes silent on Fazbear Entertainment, specifically the schematics to make a mimic because the company believes that could be of use. They detect movement in the facility and still dump us in there. The alternative is that Arnold's vehicle gets repossessed, but he has really no other choice but to work a few extra hours. Arnold's given a data diver, this being a multi-tier security system that lets him enter more and more of the facility, and eventually after some time he encounters the Mimic who keeps chasing Arnold across the game through the use of numerous animatronic personas along with like regular killer robots, I guess. Two major things to note here other than the obvious Mimic and the reveals we just went over regarding Edwin's downfall. First up, there's this supernatural tiger ghost that's implied to be either the spirit of David or the spectral amalgamation of all the suffering in MCM. That's just its own thing that we gotta mentally prepare for. The supernatural possession of these animatronics via, I think, agony. It's like this magical resource that can make this type of stuff happen, and also it's like a black goo. Generally pretty icky, but that's all I could figure out here. Second, we need to consider how MCM connects in terms of location. Across the story, as Arnold learns more about the corruption that went on here while surviving the Mimic, he continues down this path of upgrading the data diver, stumbles upon the Fiona bot who simply wants to turn Mimic 2 back into his little David form instead of a scary robot stabby guy. She was also pretending to be dispatched in order to get the schematics from Arnold, as we find out through the bad ending where he gets fired and then killed. The lowest levels of MCM reveal the Fazbear project, showing how Henry would deliberately demand almost full resets on projects when they were nearing completion, which I think was just done to kill off any remaining budget Edwin had as all of his workers leave, money's running out. Overall, not a good time. But this location is vital, not only for being a good place for the company operations potentially, but also having running underground tunnels and the mansion connected to it. I believe around here or slightly in the future, Afton is going to take over this greater facility and begin a real search for more power. In the finale, MCM's above ground building begins to burn down. Arnold escapes along with any other rogue animatronics found in the building, but Mimic says no, crashes Arnold's car, takes the data diver. It's unknown if he survives from here. And then there's the secret ending, the one where Mimic turns back into a David Mimic. That one's probably not canon, but at the end there's more footsteps outside of the bedroom where the ending takes place. Unsure of who it could be, but in my mind it's either Mr. Afton himself or Edwin, who may or may not have died prior to the events of the game. It's partly ambiguous, and that's okay. Even if he did die, it could be worse. You could be a FNAF fan. From here, we can move on to the next major period of our timeline, starting in 1983. Several years after acquiring MCM, Fazbear's expanding to a new pizzeria by the name of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Plus, everything is simply popping off by this point. Like, we got an animated series starting from here. A cheap 80s animated series is probably the defining proof of a successful franchise. And as there's the business pop off, William and Henry have their responsibilities at home. And Henry's doing a fine enough job with being a father to Charlie. As a precaution, he creates this animatronic named the Puppet in order to protect her and the children found in the establishments. But Michael, he's being a little rascal. Most likely after moving into Edwin's former home, Michael, he puts on a foxy mask, scaring little Cece. Pretty typical older brother behavior, and eventually Cece's birthday is close to happening. Now William and potential unnamed Afton mother decide to have his birthday celebrated at the pizzeria birthday place that pays the bills for him, probably because it saves them money and it's the easiest place to do it. Too bad Cece's deathly afraid of the animatronics that were created. I would be too. Have you seen them? This is probably when FNAF 4's events start to get recognized. I saw the little pixel art games as what's going on during the day, like the true events, and then have FNAF 4 simply being nightmares. Almost Cece's fear being warped to a visual level where you can see all the scary creatures and completely understand why he's afraid of these characters. And being around them for too long, it's unfortunately made it so it's hard for anyone in the family to not think about them. The Afton family is adjacent to Freddy Fazbear's. So, you know, our first proper FNAF game that even remotely attaches the initial intention of the first game, FNAF 4, it's fine. I don't like how reliant it is on audio because that just makes the jump scares significantly more insufferable since you need to increase the volume of your headset, therefore louder jump scares. And like, that's a big thing with the franchise that doesn't work for me a lot of the time. Jump scares are one of the cheapest ways to accomplish fear in the greater horror genre, and I don't like it. I think this was the first installment that began to illustrate a bad direction this franchise could go in. Again, it's fine. 5 nights later, birthday time. It's the 80s and we don't have precautions set up for health and safety risks in most entertainment centers. Michael and his 3 pals all lift up Cece so we can give Fredbear a big old bear kiss, except the Springlocks, they don't like being banged and doinked around by a screaming and kicking child horrified of his fate, and they just clamp in like how Cece was fearfully hoping wouldn't happen to him.
Was that the bite of
83. Cece's then brought to the hospital by at least William. Cece slowly fades and loses consciousness, being able to hear his father's voice through a Fredbear plush. I'd assume Cece was alive for a couple more nights. That's what I'd imagine nights 6 and 7 of FNAF 4 are, just like Cece seeing things. And now our dead kid counter is up to 2, and William's not all too happy. The man who only takes 10 seconds to draw lost something probably important to him. Now he's stuck with Michael, who's 100% screwed up for life, and Elizabeth Afton, who was probably also there. We'll get to it. Sister location is kind of jank, but Elizabeth was probably also there. Along with this, we should start to consider the rise of supernatural elements in this series that I think to really start to show up from here, namely with Agony and Remnant. To an extent, there's a complication on what each of these do, but I believe both are canon and not the same. Remnant is the equivalent of soul energy in this land. Creatures can be killed, and then Remnant can be used to create new life, potentially, and most importantly, it might be able to provide immortality. Now, Agony is something adjacent to Remnant. We already saw that through the Tiger and Secret of the Mimic. In my eyes, it's what can make an area haunted, and it's fueled by hate, suffering, anger, fear. Generally the bad vibes that might come through something like, oh, I don't know, a child perishing in or around your facility? So we already know that Mr. Afton's quite the conniving bastard of a man. He's totally willing to ruin lives for his personal gain and benefit. He's the purple guy for a reason, you know? And so, probably out of rage or general frustration with the world, he gets shit-faced and really angry, stumbling upon Fredbear's family diner with Charlie Who locked her out? That is not a thing that is normal in restaurant. I don't know. Why are customers even able to lock these doors? Also, by pure chance, the puppet is stuck in the box due to some presence. That is stupid. The point is that Willie kills off Charlie. Our dead kid counter is up to 3. Then the puppet, out of desperation, crawls through the heavy rain to see if it can save Charlie. The puppet is too late and not waterproof, and then it ends up deactivating right next to Charlie, where the remnant kicks in and Charlie becomes the puppet, making the creature waterproof and like a ghost monster thing. I believe that somehow around this point is when William, around not 1 but 2 separate deaths involving the animatronics, was able to learn a lot about Remnant, of the paranormal, and set sight on manipulating this resource in order to figure out a better way to control it to his benefit. The night of Charlie's death is partly shown through the infamous minigame full of speculation Midnight Motorist, where William's angrily stomping about and utterly miserable mourning the death of his son. There's a decent amount of speculation on this minigame for a few reasons, namely regarding things like why is he not welcome at Junior's, even though it's probably just like his drunk outbursts or rage, or everyone speculates him of being responsible for the death of his own son, or what's that mound of dirt for, who was buried there, and as if it wasn't like Cece was buried there. I guarantee you it was Cece. I mean, Afton seems like he has enough of an ego to refuse burial via cemetery, but he would want to keep his boy's resting spot close enough to visit at any point, far enough to where it wouldn't keep distracting him, and without a proper gravestone or grave piece, lazy enough to fit what I would imagine Afton is. Being a monster pretending to be a man with a severe lack of attention to such an important person in his life. Technically, it could be something else, such as the entrance to the underground tunnels. I don't really think Midnight Motorist is that important. Why is this place still a piece of debate? Remember what Mr. Hippo taught you. Wait until 5 laps at Freddy's invalidates all of this.
Wait. What if it was Susie's doggy?
My disapproval of you as an individual is withheld on an indescribable level. You will be a mere blade of grass while I exist as a statue erected in gold. This is the start of a proper Fazbear rough patch. Cancellation of the Fredbear cartoon, removal of the merch, shutdown of the original restaurant because it pretty instantly became a sore spot for like every person ever. Should also note here that there's speculation that FNAF 4's gameplay could also be around the POV of a guilty Michael struggling with the nightmares. And to be honest, it doesn't matter because both of the possibilities of the game are realistic and neither impact the story. Just further emphasizes what we already know, that these are nightmares. Nightmare animatronics, Nightmare Freddy, Nightmare Chica, Nightmare the rest of them. Just like the name, they are nightmares. I'm gonna say around 1984 to 85 for this next point. The start of the missing children's incident. William's gonna attempt to become immortal without the need of a snail chasing him everywhere. With the underground complexes conveniently being right next to his house, Afton sets up Circus Baby's entertainment and rentals to net more cash while also potentially keeping a secret secluded part of the location to himself. Friendly reminder that this place is pretty huge and underground. It wouldn't be that hard to pull off. This is when the kiddos start going missing and or get kill-defied. 5 kids by the names of Gabriel, Susie, Jeremy, Fritz, and Cassidy are all respectively taken by William one way or another. Killed all 5 of these kiddos, so the counter goes up to 8. Big upgrade. Here's where Charlie McPuppet Pants, feeling real guilty about her untimely death at the worst birthday party ever, decides to put the souls of the children into respective animatronics with their bodies. Therefore, the small children are now trapped in the horrifying steel chambers of these 8-foot-tall monsters, aimless, frightened, and with no notion of escape, forever forced to roam as the attractions that they have become. I mean, it could be worse. You could be a FNAF fan. They each get their remnant and souls forced into Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, Foxy, and the agony-filled Golden Freddy. I also believe that at this point, Afton killed Susie's dog as a way to abduct her, and also, by proxy, just to see if that remnant would come into other species. In this instance, I truly believe the dog's soul went into like Chica's cupcake creature, though it was the puppet who eventually crammed the souls into each animatronic. I'm not really certain what Afton was hoping to do with them or anything like this. I don't know if he has a motive or not at this point, unless he knew the puppet would be like put the souls in each animatronic. I don't know. The point is, this is all dumb. This whole series is. As for the reason for him doing this horrible atrocity, it could be Afton seeing what capacity remnants can be manipulated with. It's just that in turn, half a dozen children could have died and are now forced to roam as monsters as their souls are warped and practically tortured. Could be worse. You could be a FNAF fan. It's during this time that the original Freddy Fazbear Fazbear's Pizza is also shut down. For first off, being a bad omen to visit on account of the number of kids that went missing here, and second, apparently Afton disposed of the bodies in the animatronics. Like, why would you make yourself even more connected to the crime with the business? Why would you connect both of them even harder? How many people would actually know the animatronic suits would be able to fit a body in them? It doesn't really matter because, again, the place is shut down, and those 4 yucky animatronics with dead kids where your organs should be are gonna get cleaned out, kept in storage, maybe even wither a little bit. Ooh, it's the withered ones. This is the part where I remind you that Fazbear Entertainment is corrupt and bad. They are a lifeless corporation with or without Henry and William in the picture. 1987. Ooh, that's the funny FNAF number. We know what that number means. A new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has opened up. It's probably a different location, could just be like a renovated one, but agony still lingers in this location one way or another. It seems like this little franchise in the franchise is forever gonna be haunted. Ah, chalupas. Could never be El Chips though. I imagine if El Chips is like perfect, like everyone likes them and they're super nice. It's FNAF 2 time. Day shift is your usual mild sketch behavior, but night shift I couldn't even tell you, dude. You couldn't catch me in there. I mean, first off, the original animatronics that were haunted here have become the withered animatronics, each of them having pieces and parts and transferred to the new toy animatronics. These are Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Mangle, who's like a weird disassembled freak. You've got Balloon Boy, and then the puppets start attacking now. Had a weird worry coming into this one. How are the toy animatronics possessed? Did Willie Afto decide to end more lives? That would be possible, except that, spoilers for later, the toys are never really addressed again, so that would be a little weird. Personally, I feel like it's just easier to have it be something like the withered animatronics having their parts given to the toy animatronics, and then like that gave a little bit of their souls to temporarily haunt. That, or they could be fueled by agony or more dead kids, but instead the community decides to take the time to figure out Monty Gator's blood type or some shit. The night shift is performed by Jeremy Fitzgerald, a random member of Fazbear Entertainment, forced to fight for his life, as we saw via people like Arnold. They just take advantage of whoever's working for him. Point is, Jeremy survives 6 straight nights around November, gets moved up to day shift for a final birthday when on night 6, somebody uses the former Spring Bonnie suit and does something. And if you somehow don't know, that Spring Bonnie suit is the one William used to lure children. It's the one all the animatronics are now deathly afraid of, considering it was the final thing they saw before being kidnapped or died. I'd like to imagine, just for the sake of convenience, Afton succeeded in an attempt to slaughter more kiddos, and the withered animatronics started freaking the hell out. And then with the spare parts being taken and put into the toy animatronics, they started freaking out. And the most reserved one, Charlie the puppet, she would just get like super aggressive because of that, which is why everyone becomes so much more of a challenge on night 6. Just my idea. William could have killed more kids, or just because, or maybe not, or maybe for more remnant. We don't ever get to see or learn about these victims if they even exist. Feel free to perceive it however you want to perceive it. I'm not game theory. I'll never be him, and that's all right. I'll be something else. So Jeremy survives that final night, has to be close to the animatronics, and wouldn't you know it, the former children who were all tweaking from seeing William once again, one of them goes a little too far, chomps his frontal lobe off. My money's on Mangle, because look at Mangle and tell me they wouldn't try biting brains like a hoagie. Then there's night 7, a custom night. Normally, I wouldn't consider these official, but in this specific game, there's a new night guard for the final night, Fritz Smith. The only known trait is showing up for FNAF 2's custom night. There's such a weird character and outlier, and there not being one but 2 important characters named Fritz feels like a massive cover-up. I could very much see it being William Afton with a fake name messing around with Remnant again. It could be the start of Michael Afton coming to these facilities and seeing how he could help, but of course, the funniest route is it just being a random-ass guy who wanted to feel something and just wanted to try it, just try being a security guard. I mean, security was literally not supposed to come on night 6. Even Fazbear Entertainment knew that this was too dangerous to attempt doing. But yeah, that was the bite of 87, and fellas, I feel like I've been following the expectations of a typical FNAF lore retelling for a bit too long. And why would I repeat the same pages of regurgitated nonsense that everybody in this community already knows? What would you or I gain repeating the same information that you already know on account of being a FNAF fan? Because chances are that you're a FNAF fan, or stupid. So a FNAF fan. Anyway, here's where I'm putting FNAF World. I think FNAF World is canon. Try to stop me. You can't. Technically a meta adventure making fun of the franchise, but at the same time, there's nothing really preventing us from considering it officially part of the greater story going on here, except that it includes characters from later installments, the meta aspect, the parodies to things that happen way in the future, like EXE games, the fact it's been considered a disgraced installment by the community and Scott himself, or it including random creatures and killers that have no right to be in a FNAF game. I just think there's something here, I guess, considering Fazbear Entertainment has been shown time and time again creating little arcade games with their properties. This could easily be treated like them making an at-home console game during this time period. Maybe this isn't the FNAF world in universe. Maybe there's a second version in universe that fixes all these problems. Maybe this is like a corrupted variant in the future. Or maybe we could consider like this is something like an agony-infected game. It's really just its own thing, and I would like to imagine that FNAF world is a product and we simply get a different version of it, but regardless, I refuse to admit it's not canon. An alternative idea I heard and actually don't mind is FNAF world being some of the final stuff Crying Child sees before his death, like in his final visions were already like FNAF style arcade things. So maybe this just is more of like as he moves on to the death, maybe he starts seeing like in the future. I don't know. It's already, again, dumb franchise. I'm not necessarily against anything that could happen here. Lastly, I had this other idea involving the mysterious gray room guy in the game who eventually reveals the creation of Circus Baby. Specifically, this could be a game created partly via obligation and partly as vent art for somebody in universe. I just think the existence of Old Man Consequences and Ultimate Custom Night could indicate that it being a product fueled with agony. Regardless, it's a complicated mess no matter what we try. And speaking of which, at some point between 1987 and 93, there's a pretty sizable amount of stuff that goes on, but we don't know the exact time points of. Just like how I don't really know why I decided to make this episode a collab. Isn't that right, Flazed Fire?
Look at that. It's a little Choopo type character. Hi.
With the creation of Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals, Afton decides to create his own chain because I'm pretty sure that by this point, Henry's probably left the company. He only had one kid, he's down to 0, and so he's 100% sad. But Afton, he's only lost a third of his kids, so he can only be 33.3 repeating % sad. He can still be a businessman. Thus is the creation of Circus Baby's Pizza World, where he built Circus Baby to have a very special gimmick of killing children when they're alone. Probably for the Remnant or for murder reasons. Both are viable options. Sometimes there aren't even really motives. And good news for William Afton, he successfully managed to snatch a child through Circus Baby. Bad news though, it's his daughter, Elizabeth Afton, has died. William Afton is now 66% sad. Yeah, I'd assume around this point, William went completely AWOL with his life and motives. I'm still under the impression that he's working his keister off for power and immortality and whatnot, but he just so happens to be ending lives in the process, and he's not really going back. By this point, the FNAF 2 location seems to have shut down. It wouldn't be demolished, instead left abandoned, seemingly in a fit of rage or desperation. Afton dismantles the 4 major animatronics and eventually finds himself cornered by the victims of the missing children's incident. So in a final act of desperation, because I don't know what ghost kids can do, that's a fair response, William runs into his iconic Springlock suit, puts it on, and for the first time in a long time, celebrates his little victory until, the Springlock suit starts to Springlock. Oh no! So then he has all his bones and body and organs like super duper stabbed as he bleeds out in the most painful type of death conceivable. Stabbing hurts, imagine like a million stabs. That's what he's gone through. Afton finds himself suffering to the levels of those he was responsible of slaughtering beforehand. The man behind the slaughter finds himself alone, isolated, and eventually deceased. Could be worse, you could be a FNAF fan. So yeah, he's gonna come back as Springtrap. Everybody knows that. We don't care now. Let's completely ignore that burden and move straight to 1993 probably, where the very first FNAF game takes place and where it all began in our history, not theirs. I can tell why this game got so popular. It's different, it's got good atmosphere and concept, but most of all, it opened the door. It had ideas and concepts that weren't really seen or expected anywhere else. And then Scott Cawthon managed to make 4 of these games within a year, and all of them were pretty fun and well reviewed. Like, regardless of how you feel about that, compliments to the chef for being able to cook at such a consistent quality. To be fair, you were doing nothing but air frying tater tots, but you made them crispy. Let's start off with the week before novel. It's a tragedy following our favorite little employee of Fazbear Entertainment, Phone Guy. His real name's Ralph, by the way. Ralph is by all means a victim of circumstance. Growing up, he had a rough childhood with a perfectionist father. Then he left home, got married, had a daughter named Capelia, I think is her name. Capelia, that's what I'm gonna say. I don't know if that's pronounced right. And eventually went to work under Fazbear Entertainment through the pizzeria for years, eventually getting Employee of the Month 22 consecutive times. Contrary to a good chunk of the known Fazbear employees, namely the obvious duo and then that one guy who says exotic butters, Ralph got the job to pay the bills, support his family, and have a decently fun time. He is a genuinely good person. He's great around children. He has a kind heart. And so to minimize the amount of damage done under this severely clearly evil company, he makes instruction guides, informs employees of what to do in their shifts to maximize their odds of getting out of there. He is a protector in the wrong position with no way of getting out other than to retire, which is exactly what he plans on doing. Ralph's story takes place a week before the player's week of FNAF. Over the years, and after finally taking night shift, he realizes how dangerous the job actually is. Truly, finally, once and for all, and across it, he takes care of the pizzeria, has to dispose of a body of an intruder, and unfortunately seems to perish on his couple final nights, being stuffed into a suit in the back, leaving behind his daughter right before retiring from this hellhole. This novel, I think, takes time to show how dangerous this place truly is. People on both sides are in danger practically at all times. There's nothing else to do besides stay away. By all means, this is an evil, wretched place, and honestly, it only gets worse. In the new pizzeria, the toy animatronics are disposed of, all effort going toward improving the withered ones. It goes back to the main models that get used. You play as Michael Schmidt. Just kidding, that's actually an alias for Michael Afton. He's gonna be the main protagonist for a little bit, but I mean, in the past couple of years, he lost his dad, lost his sister, all in the same company. At this point, he's practically obligated to get employed and figure out what's going on, and so he does. And meanwhile, Henry's out there doing something. Could be in prison, I wouldn't put it past him. Maybe William betrayed him or something. That's about it with the first game, the one that started it all, the one responsible for an empire of talented artists and slightly less talented artists that are responsible for official illustrations for some reason, the one that would inspire a new wave of internet horror via analog and such. I do think this is an effective little game that does what it needs to do. I just think that there's a lot of cool concepts found within the games. It's just that I'm justifiably unhappy with the route FNAF would eventually take with the abundance of futuristic technology and 100% aiming towards children and man-children. It baffles me that the franchise about dead robot children has managed to garner such a dedicated and, in my opinion, kind of weird empire. Like a year ago, I went to this convention with a few friends of mine, and as a joke, we went to this panel titled, I'm not kidding when I say this, by the way, nothing else but FNAF 18+. And let me tell you, I have a high cringe tolerance, so let me just say, it should speak mountains that I had to walk out in 15 minutes. In the 2-hour panel, I was the last one standing among all of my pals. I'm allowed to think that FNAF is cringy and mildly insufferable, while also having actually compelling or funny moments I jive with. And I truly believe that the story and franchise itself, respectfully, has milked a fat cow into a shriveled raisin. That's besides the point. Around 1995-ish, we have Sister Location, still led by Michael Afton, where he ventures to those underground tunnels near his childhood home in the former MCM building. He's here to investigate Fazbear Entertainment further, and things start falling apart on night 2 when Circus Baby, it's Elizabeth, we already know that. Surprise, Elizabeth possesses Circus Baby. She's all like, hey bro Mingo, the other critters here want to kill you and rip out your bones and shit, like really tasty ribs. And said animatronics are believed to be made of most of the old parts from the animatronics of FNAF 1, each going into a Funtime animatronic. Freddy, Foxy, Chica become their Funtime animatronics. Bonnie probably becomes Bonbon, and Ballora, we don't even really know the consensus. It could be Miss Afton, aka a character who may or may not exist and has minimal significance across this franchise, but whatever, it's fun. We're having fun here. Every night, Mike's playing with fire, but also manages to slide out of painful deaths, getting exotic butters for his hard work. One night, he has a close call being stuck in a springlock suit as Ballora sends out her freaky little ballerina creatures. By the end of this adventure, including corpses and minimum wage earnings, all animatronics are sent to the scooper room, where I guess it yanks out endoskeletons of animatronics, which sounds very painful if you're a human. Then Circus Baby reveals that all the Funtime animatronics and monsters of this location did a super fusion to become the Ennard. So now all the souls are smushed together into one creature with no intention of breaking up. At this point, the souls of the missing children also seem to have lost themselves and numb to this life. Considering a majority of their existences has been this, they're okay with ending lives or something. Let's be real, I can just make up stuff for the rest of the video and there's a 50-50 chance I'm right. There is 2 endings here, both are bad. Mike will either get scooped with Ennard hiding in his skin to escape the underground facility, and if Mike somehow survives, the alternative option is that he escapes night 5 and Ennard manages to follow him home while watching TV, where it's safe to assume he also got mangled but not killed off like the other ending. No matter what, he's lost most of the stuff that makes him human, and so now he's determined to bring an end to all these nightmares and loss under Fazbear by any means, and through the most logical idea, finding his father wherever William may be. And that takes us to the next worthwhile time point in 2023. That's like over 6 years later. There's gotta be more to talk about, come on. let's look at alternate continuities. I was on and off about this, but hey, there's a lot of time until the next mainline game. Let's take time to cover all the separate iterations of the story. Let's start off with the Silver Eyes trilogy. This collection of books most prominently takes place in 1995 and follows a girl by the name of Charlie. Once again, warning, this is a separate continuity, but her father is Henry. This isn't the Charlie from the games. Book 1 sees her coming back to her hometown of Hurricane, Utah at the age of 17 for the purpose of seeing the launch of a scholarship program for her old childhood friend Michael Brooks, who went missing 10 years prior, just like her brother Sammy, who may or may not be real, as we're gonna see. These books benefit off the use of illusions, of Fazbear magic and goop and oregano or whatever the hell. Just a whole bunch of missing kids in this place, and somehow none of them ever came up or got figured out. No one solved it. It's assumed Henry was the killer because in this continuity, he ends his life upon Michael going missing. Then she meets up with a bunch of her other friends we don't care about, including John, Jessica, and Carlton. Because they're bored, I guess, they decide to go explore the nearly abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza inside a completely forgotten about shopping mall that establishes the animatronics does not matter. John eventually reveals he saw a yellow rabbit suit on the day of the murder, so they go back to the restaurant with some extra fodder we still don't care about, Marla, Lamar, and Jason. They go to investigate Fredbear's family diner, and still nothing really comes back on it. Back in the pizzeria, oh look, a suspicious self-proclaimed security guard in the abandoned mall. I wonder if this is anyone bad. Carlton gets abducted by a yellow suit man. Oh no. Back to the restaurant, an officer dies while investigating. Oh wow, Dave, the security guard, it's William Afton, and he killed all the kiddos from earlier, all 6 of them. Added to the count. I mean, on this final night at Freddy's, they all just like managed to survive and springlock Afton. There's really not anything else to be said here. This collection of novels feels like Fnaf met Riverdale. This would probably get 6 seasons in 2010. I'm curious of the bad timeline where this would exist. Friendly reminder that this is a trilogy. The next one is called The Twisted Ones. In 1996, 1 year later at St. Louis University, Charlie and John start dating, if anyone really cared. Jessica's also at the university while tutoring this kid named Artie. She realizes she has a bad habit of drawing rectangles all over her notes. Weird thing to investigate, but she starts working with Carlton's dad, Clay, so this is so boring. I don't care. Oh my god, this sucks. Like, I don't even mind reading. You know me, I love reading. I just, for the life of me, can't handle the books or the graphic novel adaptations. You have a gazillion FNAF dollars. Why are they all so low quality? Doesn't matter. They gotta revisit Hurricane after a hurricane, which is either a hilarious coincidence or you named your town after the one thing you're burdened with. Either way, it's stupid. By this logic, I would be located between Hockey and Gravel Town, so my point still stands. She goes to the house, discovers Afton might still be alive, and 3 wacky mysterious holes. That's fun. I'm sure that's not important. Charlie starts getting more nightmares about Sammy. Her and John revisit her old house where there's a foxy animatronic with this new piece of Afton tech that might be realistic, but stupid as hell, where a piece of tech can emit audio frequencies that make you see the animatronics, but even scarier. Like they're twisted ones. Whoa! Animatronics are roaming across the town. They dug the holes in the day to hide from anything trying to attack them, and Charlie gets attacked by this scary twisted Freddy, sees a bunch of icky body parts. Her pals come to save her. Afton reveals himself and that he was controlling the animatronics with magic or super technology. And either way, it's incomprehensible. With like the most advanced technology at this point in our timeline should be the N64. Why are magic robots here? The building starts falling apart. Secret doors show up. Charlie really wants to go check it out, but gets caught by the twisted Freddy and is spring locked inside. She's probably freaking dead. And so a defeated John and Jessica go to a diner. And from the distance, Charlie is somehow alive. It's not Charlie though, and this takes us straight to the 4th closet. John's weirded out by his clearly deceased girlfriend deciding not to be dead. This takes place 6 months later, and he's not doing too great. That's until they discover that there's a second Charlie, one that looks like the original one. I kind of just gave up around here. I lost it. So the new Charlie, that's Elizabeth, but also Circus Baby, but also Charlie because Elizabeth died and became Circus Baby, just like in the games. Charlie is Charlie Emily, who died years ago, but got made into a robot. The OG animatronics all get fused together to one horrifying combined soul monster. Carlton gets injected with some magic that lets him see the dead kids. Afton was believed to die in the previous book. He didn't. He just got a cool cyborg eye at Circus Circus Baby's pizza. Again, this is the 90s. In the end, Charlie sacrifices herself to defeat Baby. Afton probably most definitely dies, and by the end of it, everyone seems to finally be able to move on. And John leaves with some mysterious Charlie-like looking woman, so either he managed to rebuild a Charlie somehow, or he's got a very, 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 very specific type of woman. And either way, I'm not the greatest fan here. These are just some fine books at best that are more or less the same and almost go nowhere. And again, this would work very well as a lazy drama TV series with awful CGI, and it's a miracle the movie didn't adapt this story. It kinda sucks, but again, it's more of a separate thing that shares the name. Next, I feel like it's appropriate to talk about the movie. Not the second one, though. This hasn't come out yet, and Josh Hutcherson said we gotta wait till Christmas for it. I like the movie. It has some problems that I hope the sequel learns from. The actual animatronics look incredible, though. Just hope we get to see more of the horror aspect of this horror franchise. Please, just do a just do something yucky. I don't know. Have a surprise death. That would actually make it actually cool. The movie follows Mike Schmidt, a man struggling job to job while also taking care of his younger sister, Abby. This is very possibly one of the greatest blind watch experiences I've ever had, and probably not a good movie, but it's a very fun one. In the year 2000, Mike gets fired from his job as a mall cop. His counselor, Steve Raglan, recommends he takes a job as a security guard at the fabled Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where a bunch of kids went missing. The last security guard got decimated to find paste. Nothing bad will happen, but it's also the same routine we've run like a dozen times at this point. But he's gotta do this, or else social services are gonna take Abby away, and their estranged, very mean, and not nice aunt named Jane is gonna try to take the child for the benefit of custody payments. On night one, Mike sees visions of his brother Garrett being abducted and learns he can start talking to children trapped in the animatronics, because lest we forget, this is a paranormal, scary nightmare land. That following day, Jane hires a gang of vandals to destroy the restaurant and to get Mike fired. Sounds like a good enough plan. MatPat shows up to flaunt the empire that he created, and then a cop named Vanessa Shelley shows up. Oh, Vanessa, that's a name that's gonna be an issue for us in the timeline, but not this one. We'll get there when we get there. Oh yeah, and then the gang of vandals get murdered by the animatronics. Like, I don't really think anyone was checking in on this building to stay in good condition, so what were they expecting to get from here? Regardless, on the third night of working, Mike brings Abby because the previous babysitter was one of the vandals, and now she's kind of sort of not alive. And Abby pretty instantly hits it off with her robot friends on account of being children also. This is the part where Mike starts learning about the yellow rabbit, and then next 2 nights, him, Abby, and Vanessa are having a nice enough time until they discover that, the dangerous 8-foot-tall robots are dangerous! And Abby can't come back to the pizzeria. Jane babysits and instantly shrivels and possibly almost dies to Golden Freddy, where Abby is taken back to the pizzeria, and Corey X. Kenshin is a taxi driver who does nothing in this situation. It's honestly, I really thought they were gonna kill him off here. Mike then made a deal with the ghost kiddos. He can find Garrett, but in exchange, Abby gets to become an animatronic. The deal goes horribly wrong. Mike almost dies. He doesn't. Mike and Vanessa go to save Abby while the yellow rabbit shows up. It's Steve Raglan. It's William Afton. Who else would it be? Every other character is dead or MatPat or Doug. I like Doug. William fights. He loses. Apparently, Vanessa is his daughter in this continuity, which is in fact a route that they chose to take. Spring locks kick in. Animatronics take William Rafton to do his ever iconic rot in a random room for an unconfirmed extended period of time thing he always seems to do. The movie ends with a happy Mike, a happy Abby, a very comatose Vanessa, and she'll wake up in the second movie, but it doesn't matter. We're not at the second movie yet. We will get there when we get there. Not my fight. I don't have to worry about it. And of course, I think it's important to address the mountain of novels. I will never forgive you for this. Fazbear Frights and Tales of the Pizzaplex both follow a collection of stories, usually in bursts of 3, and hate to say it, this is just Goosebumps! This is just Goosebumps, but with animatronic and technology theming showing up in most of these stories. Sometimes it'll be connected to the actual FNAF stories, but sometimes it's just another robot. They're fine. They're probably all in the same universe, but it's a thing under the subtitle. The majority of these stories can remove the FNAF aspects and still pretty easily work on their own. Across the 60 short stories, I can only think a couple of them that amounted to anything truly worthwhile within the narrative. A very slim amount of them actually go anywhere. Starting with Fazbear Frights, easily the most popular of these things is the very first story of Into the Pit, which is possibly canon, but most definitely a story that got a graphic novel adaptation and then a game adaptation where in 1995, a kid burdened with the name Oswald is forced into a rough and boring summer following the shutdown of the local mill that forces a lot of families to need to move away. Oswald seems to be wasting his days in the library and rundown pizza place, Jeff's Pizza. So one day he hides in this magic ball pit to like convince his dad to come in and realize this place sucks, and takes him to a decade back. Literally no other way to describe this place other than a time machine ball pit, or as an agony-fueled pocket dimension. Regardless, I'm very upset by either possibilities being real. Oh look, a yellow rabbit. Oh look, it pretends to be Oswald's dad, and then they go and beat it, and that's the end of the story. It makes for a pretty solid short game. I'm not even gonna insult the game. It's very fun. I don't mind this one. The majority of the rest of the tales are fine. Important to note 2 incidents. First, involving this little robot creature named Ella that was in the Silver Eyes trilogy as a little robot friend Henry built for Charlie, and here they trap a person in a ventilation system forever, like they do. And the other one is called Fetch. It has an animatronic dog possessed by a ghost kid named Andrew, so whatever, add that to the count. The best story to me is called The Real Jake, where a little boy named Jake just has a very unfortunate life. He has a peanut tumor, his mom died, his dad seems to be overseas. The only thing that really kept him going is this puppet named Simon that his dad calls him through every night to encourage Jake to keep doing what he can to recover. But unfortunately, his dad Evan dies. Jake also eventually dies, and the Simon creature goes missing. Very paraphrased, but it's honestly such a 180 in comparison. The rest of the stories are completely invalidated by this one. The real Jake should not be in this collection, but it is. Then there's one called The Scoop, where the main character is a Fnaf fan, as Fnaf is just the games in this world. I don't like the idea of following a Fnaf fan. I don't like this story, but easily the most interesting of these stories is a continued one that picks up little aspects from respective stories called The Stitch Wraith. Remnant kicked in. It's controlled by Jake and Andrew being the fetch kid who died, I think. And eventually more and more souls and stories get included. It's fine enough as a concept, kind of doing its own thing as it collects its own stories like Ella the Robot. Stitch Wraith was created by a Dr. Phineas Taggart. Learning agony and mind magic, or whatever, Andrew kills him when he gets the thing. As per usual, everything is fine and dandy until William Afton shows up again. The 4th William Afton. There's 4 of them right now. Wow. In this version, he's learned how to manipulate agony like some sort of anime character, like he can infect things with agony and warp souls. He latches onto the Stitch Wraith until a puppet breaks it apart. This feels like fan fiction. It's mildly utter nonsense, but you know what? It's accurate to the FNAF model of pouring in bullshit to incentivize staying tuned to the story that's become stiff and sorrowed as they have to reveal more and more of the mysteries and create more mysteries, but in turn have to create more convoluted questions that we simply must have answered. Maybe I'm overhating and being a D1 disliker, but truly it doesn't matter because this keeps happening and it keeps getting rewarded. Stitch Wraith ends the saga with the demise of Afton. The soul of Andrew goes missing, and Jake making any other surrounding souls feel better with the power of love and whatnot. That's cool. The story's all done now. Now, Tales of the Pizzaplex is actually very interesting because now most of the stories take place closer to the modern day, and they all go nowhere and are absolutely insane, having as much in common with FNAF as they don't. I'm going to read you a summary of the story under construction provided by Five Nights at Freddy's fandom wiki page. Ahem. Maya sneaks into a closed AR attraction that simulates a perfect birthday party with Maya's friends and family. When Maya returns home, strange things are happening. Everyone is getting cancer. People are giving birth to jelly-like blobs, and everyone is acting normal about it. As everyone around Maya dies from cancer and the jelly-like blobs grow to encompass the entire Earth, Maya realizes she may still be trapped in the AR simulation as the blobs suffocate her. She wonders if she is able to die. What does this have to do with Freddy Fazbear? That's the vibe across the majority of these stories. Just like Fazbear Frights, it's more of a robot-themed Goosebumps. There's this one story called B7 where a kid thinks he's an animatronic and kills himself in a car compactor when he starts replacing his body with animatronic parts. Then he somehow survives, and another B7 starts chasing the kid. We got Monty Gator taking over a high schooler and making him end his life. The one where nanobots start ripping off the skin of a kid for tattoos. There's a retelling of the Mimic story in this book, basically the same as the game Origin. Was supposed to get a graphic novel, but again, that got canceled because the art sucked and Edwin looked like Curtis Connor. Again, you have so much money. Why do you go to so half-ass products? Why do you make so many bad things? So, to summarize, the novels are short stories doing their own thing that even if remotely canon would just indicate that Fazbear Entertainment like super duper sucks and we should do everything in our power to prevent it from grazing this already hellish mainline story. We don't know the chronological order if any of this will amount to anything, but probably not. So I am content with moving on from these things to never think about them again. We already have one stupid story to worry about, and what the hell is Phasgoo? Wow, what a collection of books that I never want to read again. In fact, I kind of wish I didn't have eyes so I wouldn't have to look at these awful graphic novels.
That can be arranged. Here's my little eye vanishing trick. Cellini Tortellini.
Genuinely, why did you do that? What did you gain from doing that? All right, now that I've conquered a personal demon, let's finally make our way back to 2023, where the events of Fnaf 3 take place. Kinda interesting that there's not a single major event for around 30 years. Maybe there will be a new game within those years in the future that we don't know about yet. I'm sure when we run out of ideas, we'll see a Fnaf game in this era. In 2023, the tragedies connected to Fnaf have pretty gradually been recognized by the greater public, probably through like true crime podcasts, documentaries, and video essay YouTubers. So much, in fact, that there comes the creation of the horror attraction Fazbear's Frights. Night 1's easy enough, but then on night 2, the owners are able to recover some of Ralph's old instruction guides for the new employees, along with the remains of William Afton in his Springlock suit. He has officially transformed into Springtrap, in my opinion, one of the greatest highlights of the franchise, objectively the greatest new-gen horror icon. But to be fair, his competition includes Art the Clown, Stranger Things, and Megan with a 3, which I didn't even know was a horror character, but Springtrap, like, actually belongs in the Hall of Fame, ankle organs and all. I'm also just gonna assume the phantoms found across this game are hallucinations or agony. Both work. It's well established that this building has bad ventilation and wiring. If they didn't see the 30-year-old rotting corpse, then they absolutely failed to take proper precautions building this place. As for Springtrap, I could see this being somewhere where Afton's alive, but not all the way there, you know? He's like still getting back into his full tendencies while adjusting to his weird and new self. Like he's forced to be in a fursuit at all times. I'd be tweaking too. Once again, multiple endings. I'm just gonna share with the one that's probably the correct one. The building burns down, Springtrap disappears, Michael Afton survives, and there's still plenty of souls wandering about in the land. Maybe we should stop that whole tormented souls who can't be put to rest thing. Between 2023 and to like 2025, we jump straight to the major conclusion of the game, Pizzeria Simulator. Fazbear Entertainment decides to once again rise from the ashes with the assistance of Henry Emily finally coming out of retirement as a shriveled old dude. Michael is given the responsibilities of not only running a pizzeria, but gathering 4 animatronics: Scrap Baby, the surviving circus baby who was evicted from Ennard; Molten Freddy, all the remaining souls from Ennard; Scrap Trap, Springtrap, if he got stung by a bee and he's like super duper allergic, but it's okay because he always comes back; and then the puppet, who's the one who's been missing the longest, and a sneaky little robot that gets trapped by the significantly slower Lefty built by Henry. So across the days, the best way I would describe Michael's behavior is gathering the necessary animatronics while also staying under the radar from Fazbear Entertainment. A majority of bad endings or different ones come from you failing to meet company expectations through things like the building being too dangerous, bankruptcy, being a bad employee. You get the idea. Just doing what's needed to survive in the business world and against the demon ghost creatures. And then on the final night, Scrap Baby believed that this would be a chance for her to kill more children or people, take more souls, seemingly become more of a threat until, well, you know.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called.
Henry is peeved at his ruined legacy he's caused, but he's also smart. He traps everyone in the building, Charlie, the missing children, even Michael, who's willing to go down with the ship. All of them are finally allowed to rest after all this time of torment and agony. Henry seems to also join this fate, considering he has nothing left following the destruction of all his creations. But William Springtrap, the only one not being controlled by agony, but the true creator of this anguish and sorrow, he's not gonna get off so easily. So, in the following game, Ultimate Custom Night, he's brought to his ultimate punishment. William Afton, the man behind the slaughter, the man that's responsible for so much death, hate, destruction, torment, and especially agony, must now suffer through potentially all of eternity, not with agony, but in his own agony. Forced to defend the very same corridors that he's made numerous innocents have to roam and perform in for decades with no signs or chance of escape. This is, simply put, a nightmare with no morning, and a fate expected and deserved, as he must face dozens upon dozens of his very own creations in the ever iconic security guard fight for his life that we have grown accustomed to. Yeah, I mean, it could be worse. You could be a Fnaf fan. William seems to be stuck in this personal hell due to Golden Freddy. Cassidy, it's also believed that his second soul might be in the animatronic, Crying Child being a possible option as well, and for an indefinite period, it's the same petty yet necessary cycle within iconic facilities in the franchise, featuring all the different animatronics across the series, their different forms. A bunch of extra characters get introduced in Pizza Sim that show up here. El Chip from a completely separate rival company from down the road, and it would be really funny if that was like a cartoon trope where El Chip has almost identical events go down in its own facilities, like Five Nights at El Chip's or something. The point is that everyone is here to act on revenge, and Afton's gotta suffer a fate worse than retail. I think my personal favorite has to be one of the very few FNAF World reps in the game, Old Man Consequences, who puts William to the side one day and goes like, dude, you freaking goofed up. You've been doing this for like 60 years. You're not cool. You're not cool, buddy. So then eventually, once all that's done, it's believed Golden Freddy might eventually move on, so everybody in all of this can finally be put to rest, finally letting the agony of this tragedy fade away. And now we have successfully reached the end of this major chapter of FNAF. I really do like the conclusion for this set of chapters. My only real request would have been to see more of Springtrap across these games, but whatever, we're not done yet. We still have to look at our next set of games, starting with Help Wanted. In 2029, that's a weird year. I don't like the sound of that one. Is that coming up? Oh, ew. Fazbear Entertainment has attempted to discredit their previous tragedies in a way where they can be denied, laugh them off, and no longer have William Afton's legacy attached to the profitable brand where all this merch comes from. Scott Cawthon is canon in the story because he was tasked with making games based on the brand and went rogue via adding secret mini-games across most of them. And in this game, you're meant to be a playtester of a new product they plan on going forward with. Now, technically, FNAF World could have also released around this point, as it could have been commissioned by Fazbear Entertainment, and maybe Scott went rogue here as well. No matter where you want to place FNAF World in position, in a role in the timeline, it's still minimal and obsolete. I just thought it was another fun route where it could be approached. I will die on the hill of FNAF World being necessary and canon to the timeline. And after all the hell I've gone through and still have to go through, it's all I have left. Let me have this one. So this is very meta. For a moment, it was thought to be like a soft reboot, but now seems to be like Fazbear Entertainment doing what's possible to cover up the scars visible from it. And by doing so, they make the best game in the series. Like, objectively, this is such a cool and fun concept that I'm deliberately hiring an editor to get footage of because the thought of seeing Fazbear in VR makes me quiver. It's scary. I'm not doing that. Across your many mini-games recreating Fazbear's infamous and totally fake stories, there's hidden cassette tapes and the most grating possible concept that comes from this franchise. Like, I'm serious. This is my least favorite aspect of FNAF. This is the domino that sets up the point of no return for me. This was the specific thing that made me realize we had lost and where we had gone. This was the downfall. So we know well in advance that Fazbear Entertainment is not a good company full of friendly fritters. It's rotten with cruel critters. And in this instance, specifically following the true ending of Pizzeria Simulator, I believe Fazbear Entertainment began to salvage the burnt down property with anything they could stumble upon and grab, and upon Scrap Trap probably taking the parts regardless if that was legal or not, and wanting to save a few extra bucks, they put the code of the animatronic into the game? But because of agony and the whole concept of haunted robot parts and all of that, William Afton's agony forces itself into the playtest of the game. His evil code forces itself into the game as Glitch Trap. So across it, you're like gathering the cassette tapes to like, I guess, make them strong enough to hijack you. You, the player, get taken over by Glitch Trap. And if you're wondering who you're supposed to be playing as, your playtester character is most likely Vanessa. She gets taken over by the bad vibes of Afton and will become Vanny in later installments. So yes, dear viewer, Help Wanted marks the first time in FNAF history where you get the honor of being in the POV of a white woman. Cherish it if you must. This was also done as a way to light retcon any issues from earlier installments. The FNAF games created prior can probably also be retconned whenever it's convenient now. This isn't even something exclusive to Five Nights at Freddy's. A lot of things have complicated stories. I don't know why the internet so desperately needs FNAF's story to be solved. Like, go figure out something worthwhile, like how to fold your shirts like people in Target do. Like that's the best way to fold clothing. It's like an actual useful life skill. Not which FNAF animatronic can bench the heaviest. I don't care about that information. FNAF AR is also believed to be released around this point, much with the same intention, likely facing the same issues as Fazbear Entertainment being lazy and maximizing their profits, creating characters like Shamrock Freddy to everyone to buy toys like the sheep they are. Isn't that right, FNAF fans with Funko products? This one's delisted, but it's believed to be taking place in the 2020 1920s. Could be a prequel to Help Wanted. It just reveals some secret emails about the scary haunted virus, i.e. glitch trap and digital agony. In the DLC of Help Wanted, we see a flashback to the Fall Fest Fiona probably died at way at the start, along with the construction of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzaplex, directly on top of where the Pizzeria Simulator restaurant was once located. And oh my god, it's time for Security Breach. It's time to talk about the 2030s. In specific, I'm guesstimating 2035. The Pizzaplex feels like Fazbear Entertainment compensating for something. I guess that very high quality merch had to go somewhere. That being a $1 billion mega project that I have no idea how it could be profitable, I would assume the electricity bill alone would be too much to stay afloat. One day, while the main 4 animatronics of Rockstar Freddy, Chica, Monty Gator, and Roxanne Wolf are doing their lovely band, they're playing the music, they're going like, they're playing Wonderwall or whatever. Freddy has some malfunction issues. Everybody has to go home early over this one small issue that really does not seem like much. All the customers go home with the exception of this one kid, Gregory. In 5 Nights at Security Breach, Gregory has to spend 1 night in the Pizzaplex with the help of Freddy. All the animatronics of the building go into a security mode, although they seem to get hacked and therefore out for blood. At the same time, this massive Pizzaplex has the singular guard of Vanessa. It's Vanny. She's also evil. We know why. Basically, everything is out to end Greg's life. Personally, I just think it'd be smarter to hide in a corner the entire night, but that's whatever. Across the night, Gregory enters a daycare, a bowling alley, a mini golf course, a diner, and all sorts of different locations as he overcomes the dangers of the Pizzaplex and generally explores this massive fun zone that I wish I could visit in person, but I guarantee you a single day would cost like $400 a person, so I guess it could be making a profit. My favorite little portion is when Gregory needs to repair a helper bot because Fazbear loves building robots for things that don't need robots. Like just have a map stand or hire a local high schooler trying to save up for college. This is actually a very accurate depiction of a modern day company. Suddenly, the Music Man shows up and it's this huge thing. What kind of child wants to go see the Music Man? What is this play? What even is the Security Breach anymore? It's always important to note that Scott Cawthon's had a bit of the thing for sci-fi elements in his games. Fnaf or not, he's made fantastical creatures, set pieces, and environments with his interesting yet partly over-detailed creatures in many projects. As we've seen the advanced sci-fi aspects continue across these games, it just feels like they would have done better with more focus on supernatural aspects. Yet again, been established that I'm unhappy with the franchise direction, so it truly is what it is. I'm growing number by the sentence, and Security Breach was the point where it just didn't feel like it was advancing, but now we just like lost the plot more than we already have. Don't even get me started on that crate in FNAF 4, for example. That alone is a fumbling, bumbling nightmare mess of inability to write a story. I'm sure making a story can be hard, but I only get paid to recap and make fun of them, so that's not my problem right now. Most of Security Breach is the sci-fi stuff, but the finale sees Gregory having the chance to leave, but also we learn more about him by this point. In specific, he's a little orphan boy, he's got no record as a customer, he snuck in, he has nothing to lose, and apparently, as is tradition to the Faz Entertainment, we got more kids missing. Don't know how many, add them to the counter. Prior to the events of this game, Vanny seems to have taken the main 4 animatronics and infected them with the glitch trap virus, taking them over just because it can happen. Afton lives on. He lives on so bad that out of the ashes comes Mimic 2. It's back. It's Burn Trap, mimicking William Afton, Willie Atonka, and the Freddy Factory. And as we know, Souls hijack the robots. You know who's here? Apparently some more Souls, as the Fun Time Freddy clump forgot what the name was. It's here. I also saw a bunch of speculation that Rockstar Freddy has been taken over by the remnant of Michael, which I think makes sense. There's nothing that saying that can't be the case, so why not? It works for me enough. There's a few endings, some good, some bad, most bad actually. The ones most likely to be canon are Freddy burning down the OG building a second time, therefore spreading to burn down the entire Pizzaplex. There's also this mini game called Princess Quest that's actually revealed to be like Glitch Trap's way of keeping control of Vanny. I guess like beating the game fully frees or subconscious. Never got that, but again, consider what we're talking about. I feel like this ending is canon. Regardless of what happens, the Pizzaplex is destroyed and it goes to ruin. The DLC pack, where little orphan Gregory has a new friend you play as named Cassidy, another child. They tried making characters that are the same ages as the intended audience of FNAF. Following Security Breach, Gregory has allegedly been dragged into the pit. No, not that one. Into the pit where Roxanne Raceway used to be. Cassie's been called for and now has got to go rescue him, while confronting all sorts of horrifying remains of animatronics. Dare I say, ruined ones? What? Cassie puts on the Vanny mask because the series loves its dumb acronyms. It lets you talk to digital assistants. It puts robots in Cassie's eyes, so that's very nice of it. The primary reason reason that Cassie wants to help Gregory is because apparently she had a birthday party. And she was a loser, so nobody showed up to the party except for Greg, presumably, and I would assume this is before the events of Security Breach. Oh look, something stupid. It's the Mixes, MXES. Not gonna sugarcoat it, it's just the mimic from the start. It's Fiona again, just trying to prevent us from reaching Gregory, but nope, it's the mimic. Gregory's the mimic. Oh no. Cassie tries escaping from the mimic, and it seems like it almost ends her life, but it probably doesn't. That evil AI thingy she gets implanted into her might be evil, and Roxanne was weirdly prominent in the DLC. I wouldn't be shocked if she returns again for any reason. And that just leaves us with Help Wanted 2, taking place, like, I want to say during the events of Ruin. Sure. Cassie's father was a technician working for the Pizzaplex. He's assumed to either be deceased, missing, or retired from working under Fazbear Entertainment. So like in Help Wanted 2, you're not even playing a game. It's like instead you're doing the subconscious code as Cassie's dad or even Vanessa, just going around and like doing all these things in hope of breaking free or something. And then one of the endings has you giving Cassie the Vanny mask at the start of Ruin, which makes me think that this is a good thing, but then also like the agony code seems to be preventing anything, while Mixes is trying to stop the mimic, while the evil no good code is corrupting Fazbear Entertainment as a whole. So it's less about kids and soul possession and more about a war between old viruses and robots under this company, while also keeping previous lore on standby for future games, and reveals that when something happens and a new character comes out with new toys and there's a new reveal drop, like William Afton killed David with the van as a way to speed up the MCM, like that's possible, or Gregory's like part mimic or android or related to David, and there's so many routes you can go, and this is fucking stupid.
You said a bad word, Mr. Choopo.
Well, I'm serious. I don't like saying that, but it is. This is fucking stupid. And it never had to be this way. Your roots have always been horror first, sci-fi elements second. You can have good horror within sci-fi, but that is not what Fnaf was. It was a relatively grounded story and concept that has been exploded in complications and saturation. It has been responsible for an entire subgenre while not fully articulating what made your franchise work in the first place. There is no way in hell any of this was planned beforehand. All of Fnaf was pieced together as we went on. The best comparison that I can think of is that iconic scene in Wallace and Gromit, where Gromit's placing train tracks as he's going along, hardly able to keep up as he improvises, except the train tracks are rusted and on fire and Gromit has no arms. What I'm trying to say is a train wreck is inbound. We don't need to know what kind of glasses Edwin needs. We don't need to know what Orville the elephant's favorite color is. We don't need to know about El Chip unless there is something like actually funny that can be done there. Fnaf has lost its footing, and because something new, something that I cannot for the life of me stay with or stay on, and this isn't an exclusive issue in the greater horror media world. Jason Voorhees went to space. Chucky got a wife and kid. Stranger Things takes an entire leap year cycle to get a season out when they're too scared to kill off any of the main characters. The truest thing about Fnaf being a horror icon is that it began to lose the essence that made it the thing the masses fell for to begin with. It actually bothers me how much of Fnaf's identity is reliant on jump scares as branding. I know it's unrelated, but making your identity the least satisfying part of horror, of accumulating fear, it very much encapsulates how backward and odd this series has become. Fazbear Entertainment very much matches a lot of the real-world Fnaf staff regarding pumping out merch and scratching for as much relevancy as possible. It's been immortalized, but no longer in a way that I appreciate, to say the least. Like, everyone jumps at jump scares, but nobody's really afraid of them. The setting, the sound design, the thought of being employed scares people in these first games. This isn't to say the modern series, specifically Steel Wool and Onward, have done a bad job. I fully believe that Help Wanted, from a gameplay standpoint, is the most effective Fnaf game, but otherwise I'm justifiably discontent, especially if one of your pillars of relevancy relies on how many videos a YouTube channel can make. Good job, Fnaf. You fortified and solidified your brand with the kiddos who got interest in this edgy, cool concept, so 10 years later when those kids all grow up, so long as more decent, at minimum quality installments are added to the franchise, there will be more content creators and thus more new fans via those content creators. You've made an empire that so few can replicate, and I loathe you for it. But don't lie to me, fellas. The vibe has changed, and that sucks. And now, you sit as a fan, you sit here, waiting for a crumb of an empire that once was, trying to recreate the glory of the past, fearful of your empire even having the risk of possibility of dwindling. All sides have forgotten what this has become. It has evolved into something I hesitate to appreciate or acknowledge. I yearn for Five Nights at Freddy's, but instead we're stuck with Fnaf. Could be worse though, you could be a Cookie Run fan.
Oh yeah, That is way worse, by far.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. How do you get emotionally attached to gingerbread people?
No, I mean, like, I torture and kill people in my spooky warehouses for fun, but I would rather do a backflip through a field of bear traps than play Cookie Run Kingdom.
All right. Thank you for validating my opinion. Glad we could be on the same page, though.
I hope your day is going well, by the way. Mwah.
Well, I'd say it could be better. I mean, reciting the entire Fnaf lore in a Jigsaw trap is one thing, but again, could be worse. You could be a Cookie Run fan. I want to talk about Dead by Daylight now. For anyone smart enough not to be a DBD fan, but just dumb enough to still be watching FNAF videos past 2017, Dead by Daylight is an asymmetrical horror game that gets a lot of its traction from the inclusion of horror icons from numerous medias and eras. So many characters are added to the roster with unique perks and gimmicks with love and care on both ends, unless you're Hellraiser. We don't like to talk about Hellraiser in DBD anymore. Among all these infamous names, we gotta ask ourselves, how are these franchises able to be in the DBD canon while also absent from their respective franchises? Some of these make sense, like Bill from Left 4 Dead being taken right before his assumed death at the end of the first game's story, or the fact that Xenomorph Chosen is specifically the one assumed to have died at the end of Alien, so gets rescued right before its demise. But then you have ones like Trevor Belmont being taken mid-adventure of his game, or Leon Kennedy getting nabbed before he does anything in Resident Evil. A good number of the licensed chapters completely obliterate their respective timelines, and it just so happens that at the time of writing this, Springtrap, along with legendary cosmetics of Glitch Trap, Yellow Rabbit, and potentially more animatronics in the future have also been added to the roster, and it also completely shatters their FNAF timeline, because Springtrap alone canonically enters DBD right before waking up in his 30-year nappy nap caused from his Springlock suit snapping him like a glow stick, skipping right past FNAF 3 sister location Pizzeria Sim. Technically, everything past Pizzeria Sim wouldn't even have a chance of happening. Springtrap going missing eliminates all of FNAF outside of the Mimic. So then, what do? Well, the devs behind DBD came up with a solution that part of me hates for being lazy, but another part of me loves for how stupidly perfect this is for all collabs. It is perfectly half-assed. This is the Entity. In concept, it's a horrifying, malevolent being that invades worlds and snatches up anyone that it can, or anyone who's been deemed scary and hateful enough. The fastest way it can find people is when a very bad, naughty, not nice person deliberately commits pointless acts of violence. Therefore, allowing small portions of the Entity to pop in, maybe reward the killers who summoned it with new powers or capabilities, punish the survivors where needed, like take away any weapons they might have, and then force the killer who loves what they're doing to hunt down survivors in small maps, specifically eating the strongest emotions produced by survivors, so like fear and adrenaline. To do this, the Entity creates a perfectly, totally not unbalanced little game, slightly rigged in the benefit of killers, so survivors have more hope of escape and therefore tastier emotions. In some instances, the Entity will warp reality and manipulate aspects to create or select those killers by contorting them into death machines. The Entity cannot comprehend the locations it consumes and tries to replicate a lot of it a lot of the time. Maps aren't fully logical and the equivalent of trying to recreate a dream you had like a week ago on paper. So it's incomprehensible. But then also in cases where survivors are killed, they get revived. But then also if survivors lose hope, they go to the void. But then also is sometimes if the killers are too strong, like Vecna from Dungeons and Dragons, they get nerfed. But then also the Entity travels across an infinite multiverse and grabs whatever, any characters that are beneficial. So it might not be the versions of the characters we know but in love, but instead ones that are like very similar to the ones we know and love. Maybe those ones got taken instead. Maybe this is a different Springtrap, a different Glitch Trap, a different freaking Leatherface. I don't know, and I hate this, and it's so smart. Like it completely covers every route as the ultimate catch-all for the story, and it's potentially the smartest decision the team of devs has ever made. That's not saying much though if you consider the patch history of the game. You guys are sleeping on the cosmic horror this thing is. The Entity is a micromanaging nightmare that can only be compared to the micromanaging nightmare of maintaining Dead by Daylight. This game always feels like a train wreck waiting to happen with some of these quality of life changes. I mean, it took you like 10 years to speed up the blood web process. Was it really that difficult to update your level up system? I don't even know what to tell you. Here's all the franchises I want added to the game. Now, I must add that some of these inclusions just don't add up. You have people from the past, the future, from apocalypses, from perfectly functional societies. All of these franchises and worlds worlds are separate, and by extension, I really did. FNAF's part of a multiverse. Even FNAF manages to get a multiverse. How do you do that? And that's fine, whatever, and now it's viable for Fortnite. Just add them. They deserve to be in Fortnite at this point. We're not even counting the movies right now. There's just a multiverse. There's nothing we can do about it. I hate myself. DBD is not canon to FNAF, but FNAF is canon to DBD. At the start of FNAF 3, there's a timeline split where Afton wakes up, like he does initially, he hears sounds in the kitchen, and wouldn't you know it, Entity's there, feels the vibes of the Springtrap, and he went, ah shit, this guy likes killing kids? I love when that happens. I gotta have him in my death murder game thingy. And so, Springtrap has been immortalized in this game unless he's randomly removed for any reason, because that's happened before twice. Now he's sitting right beside the Tokyo Ghoul guy on the select screen. Mr. Tokyo Ghoul himself, who really hates eating burgers and has that one sad reaction image that I really like. As for Glitch Trap, it's a perfect replica. Entity managed to replicate the code and transfer it into physical matter. Even if it wasn't, the collab catch-all would still exist, we're fine. Yellow Rabbit's implied to be taken right at the climax of the first movie with the spring lock injury clearly visible. This one will probably be an issue in later movies. Good thing it doesn't matter regardless. DBD is the most freedom any of these games have given us to a realistic FNAF location that doesn't hurt my eyes to look at. Talking about Pizzaplex. It's a unique layout which by extension makes sense because this could be a multiverse thing or it's the Entity trying to slam together the restaurant. Either way, I like it a lot. I wish there was a genuine security office instead of the worst bathroom I could imagine. Like in a place like this, I feel like having exactly one big bathroom instead of like two smaller ones causes so many problems that was probably the Entity not knowing that would be an issue. But most of all, this gives a better idea of William Afton's psyche to an extent. When we look at his actions, his morals, his intentions for what he does, we can say with more confidence that he's a loser. Afton thinly veils himself in this pathetically annoying level of confidence that I would get secondhand embarrassment from seeing from any person in any iteration. He tries his hardest to remain this cunning and intimidating man who's trying to play God, stepping over anyone the second he no longer has a reason to keep them around. I mean, consider that infamous FNAF 3 jump scare, the one where he like slowly walks up to you and checks you out or something. He has and will attempt to be this menace who stalks upon his prey and strikes at the right moment. He's been doing it to children for like 40 years at this point of the timeline. In this way, he perceives himself vulnerable enough to be reliant on gradual fear and discomfort. But in DBD, the Entity gives him these powers. The risk is gone. Now he has a magical super axe and a domain expansion, so his power swaps to one full of jump scares and little fits of rage, rather than one reliant on tactical decisions. In a sense, he acts more like the child lost in their own power fantasy than the lost souls. Those ones are scared kids flailing and attacking the security guard who they think their former murderer was. And compared to Afton, there's this fairly sound reasoning for the animatronics to act the way they do. You can ridicule Springtrap's jump scare sound in the game, but the fact of the matter is that him roaring like Mike Wazowski cements these thoughts. Although it's true he cheated death, William Afton is a rotting corpse whose legacy is as a pathetic creature who that kills innocents. Most of which just because he could. Some of which were because they were inconvenient. It's like a lot of killers in DBD. They are unwell people who for one reason or another have nothing else but hate in their hearts and a desire to ruin. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying a good amount of them. And when you get to that point, it immortalizes you as a pathetic, hated, insufferable, selfish, and worst of all, feared thing. The thing that was being sought out for from the very start, from these genuinely evil Brussels sprouts touching the mac and cheese. And that is what makes a good horror icon. That is what I like about Five Nights at Freddy's. The root of all evil in this story, multiple versions of essentially the same guy, the one who caused so many problems, the butterfly across this franchise. I like this. This is good. This is compelling. Intentionally or not, he is just a legitimately good quality portion of FNAF and horror. Again, ankle guts and all. Help Wanted, Ruin, and Secret of the Mimic are all games that, although partly stupid, are able to remember at least some of what made these games effective. And because of that, I hope that Five Nights at Freddy's will return to become a modernized horror brand that knows why it's here. Until then, we can only wait for what's to come. And personally, I couldn't be more curious. And there you have it. FNAF is solved and done for now, but surely no attempts will be made to set up some sort of curveball that revitalizes and rewrites the story and the majority of the narrative up to this point. That's never happened in this franchise before. But with that being said, please be sure to subscribe and check out all my other vids and stuff so I can keep going on awesome, cool adventures. So, ominous person holding me here against my will, I finished the thing. Can I go home now?
Oh yeah, about that, you didn't sign the contract. None of that mattered, you silly goose.
Dude. Whatever. Can I do something to get out of here?
Yeah, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10.
9.
No, it was 4. You lose. Bye-bye, Chudpo.
Aw, shucks, aw, crackers.